What's up, everybody? TGIF. Welcome to The Sweat. I'm Jessie Coffield. Lots to get to on today's show, but we're starting in the football world. Say hello to our NFL panel, DraftKings contributors Pierce Dietrich and Jeff Ulrich. All right, guys, before we get into Chase or Fade, we have got to get your reactions to the report that the Browns will be releasing Odell Beckham Jr. So firstly, which team needs him the most? There's a couple that could be on that list. But secondly, which team is the best fit for him to maximize his fantasy potential, Pierce?
I don't know if anyone really needs him. If you're getting cut at this point in the season, you're probably not that good. And Odell Beckham hasn't really looked that good when he's been on the field this year, or even last year. The Browns were better when he wasn't there. If I had to say, if any team could turn him around or get production out of him, we know who it's going to be. Who is the one team that knows how to take a volatile wide receiver / diva and get that receiver to put points on the board? It's the Patriots. So go ahead and put him on the Patriots. That's the only place I see this working out.
Jeff, do you think Bill Belichick is the only one who could make this situation better?
I mean, yeah. I mean, people are probably tired of hearing this narrative, but you look around the league, right? I mean, I guess you could slot him in at like Baltimore, but I mean, that just seems like it's not going to work. I mean, they don't pass that much, you know. I mean, they've already got some big, big names there. I don't see that working out. Pierce is right. I mean, from a fit standpoint and from an organizational standpoint, I mean, it does feel like the Patriots would be the target here. I think the Packers would be like the sort of dark horse number two. But I mean, when have the Packers ever done and gone out and got an actual free agent wide? Like, it's probably just not going to happen. The Patriots need a big play wide receiver. That's kind of like the missing piece of their offense. They've got Bill Belichick with a lot of history in this. You know, they've got an organization that just is kind of set in their ways, and either Odell is going to fit into it or he's just going to get cut next week. So I do think the Patriots make the most sense here in terms of his potential just to do anything this year.
All right, let's jump into Chase or Fade now, guys. So Jeff, Chase or Fade, Trevor Siemian leads the Saints to another win by more than the 6-point spread against the Falcons on Sunday.
Man, this game. I mean, division game between Atlanta and New Orleans with a backup quarterback. There's just so many question marks. I'm gonna fade it. Atlanta's looked decent enough for me to have a tiny bit of confidence in them here. I mean, the big thing is the way New Orleans plays. Yeah, they're dominant on defense, but you know if the offense just crumbles or if their defense just allows like 10 points, I mean, is Trevor Siemian coming back? Like, is this two-headed quarterback monster? Because I'm sure we'll see Taysom Hill. Is this two-headed quarterback monster capable of coming back? I just don't think that's possible. And you have Matt Ryan playing a little bit better. Kyle Pitts getting a little bit better as well, just in terms of his comfort level. You know, they've kind of like Ridley is away from the team. That's fine, but at least it's settled now. So I think they're going into this week a little bit more settled as a team. And you have the turbulence on the other side of the ball here. So New Orleans is by far the better team here, but I think a 6-point spread with Siemian, I think it's just a little bit inflated. I actually wouldn't be shocked if this came down more in the 5 range. So I'm going to fade it. I think Atlanta has a decent chance to at least cover here.
Pierce, are you going to fade this one too?
No, I'll chase it. It really has nothing to do with Siemian. I'm sure that Sean Payton's going to try to limit what Simeon's input is, and I don't even know how many series he'll play. We're probably going to see a healthy portion of Taysom Hill in this game, but really it comes down to the rush attack. Ingram and Kamara and the Saints defense. That's what's going to put them over. I know that the Falcons have looked good. I mean, basically every week except for week 1, but they didn't really look good last week. And what's the story here? They played one of the easiest schedules in football. They've looked good against some really bad opponents. Last week, they ran into, I guess, an average team. I know Carolina got healthy last week. They added Stephon Gilmore. So they've improved, but no one's going to sit here and tell you that Carolina is a great team. And Atlanta was only able to put up, 13 points against them. Now they've got to face a Saints defense that's much more better. I just don't see the Falcons moving the ball or scoring. And the Saints, sure, we can worry about this offense, but if they're working with short fields for most of the game and they've got Ingram, they've got Kamara, they should be able to put points on the board.
All right, Chaser fade. The Titans can cover the 7.5 points on the road without Derrick Henry against the Rams. Pierce, what do you think?
I'm going to fade this. I mean, how many times have we been on here on a Monday and we talk about how great the Rams are? And how many times have we been on here on a Tuesday and debated whether the actual Titans are good or not? I know Jeff is much more bullish on the Titans than I am. I don't believe in them. Even when they had Derrick Henry, I'm not a big believer in this team. This offensive line is up and down. The secondary is up and down. Ryan Tannehill is up and down. They're just not very consistent. And the only knock against the Rams is that we're constantly holding them to the highest standards possible. We expect the Rams to be the best team ever every single week. It's pretty ridiculous. If we held them to normal standards, we wouldn't even have any doubts about this. The Rams are a much better team. They should cover this spread.
All right, Jeff, do you think the Rams are going to cover this spread?
I mean, my goal this entire year is going to be to make Pierce a believer in the Tennessee Titans. And hopefully, maybe this is the week, Jesse, where we can finally do it. We can finally get Pierce Dietrich to say on the show that the Titans, they're actually a good team. They have a chance. I think this spread is ridiculous. No, I'm definitely chasing the Titans to cover here. Look, the Titans are 6-2 ATS this year. I mean, this is a team that does cover. And do you want to know why they cover? Because they always get underrated by smarty pantses like Pierce in the spread. I mean, Derrick Henry being out, obviously he's their best offensive weapon. He's
their only weapon.
He's not their only weapon. AJ Brown is a weapon as well. He has tons of weapons all over the league. But AJ Brown, healthy. Ryan Tannehill can still run the option with Jeremy McNichols back there, who's a decent all-around back. And again, yes, I expect the Rams offense to throw it around the yard here against the Tennessee secondary. But this Tennessee offense just continually gets underrated. They've got big play wide receivers. The Rams, where is their signature win this year? They beat the Colts by 3 points. Okay, they beat up on the Bucs early in the year. That's about it. But then they came back with like some losses to the Cardinals. So I don't know. The Rams are okay, but I think their defense here can still be had. I'm expecting a high-paced, fast or high-scoring game, and I do think that the Titans in the end, maybe they don't win this, but they make it close and they cover.
All right, chase or fade, Jeff. Jordan Love keeps it close against the Chiefs and covers that 7.5 point spread.
Okay, well, I'm going on the opposite direction here. I'm fading this 100%. You look, it's not just the Jordan Love factor too. Jordan Love is obviously a big factor. You look at this Green Bay defense, they have had some gift matchups here. 5 of their 7 opponents so far this year, they've been in the bottom 12 of just in terms of like average passing yards per game. They faced off against the Saints and the Bears, who rank worst and second worst in terms of passing offenses in the league. So this defense looks good on paper, but they're really inflated by their opponent here. And I think Patrick Mahomes and crew, they love this because Aaron Rodgers has just stolen the spotlight. The big story coming to this game is what was wrong with the Chiefs. The Chiefs just about lost to the Giants. They're playing bad. Now the story is the complete opposite. Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, the Chiefs are sitting home. They're going to come out here and lay one on the Packers, I think. And you also have the Jordan Love factor. I know that, they could run the ball like they did against Arizona, but I think the Chiefs are going to be more than ready for that. I'm fading Jordan Love being able to cover this on his own. I think the Chiefs just come out and score too many points.
Pierce, you fading Jordan Love?
No, I'm not fading Jordan Love. I'm chasing this. I mean, are we watching the same teams here? The Chiefs are terrible. You can say what you want about the Packers on paper. Well, guess what? The Chiefs are bad on paper and they're bad in real life. Their defense is terrible. We can all agree on that. The stats bear that out. We've seen it with our own eyes. Some people still don't realize that this offense doesn't look good either. Travis Kelce looked off last week. Tyreek Hill is up and down. Patrick Mahomes looks even more than off. This doesn't look like a comfortable quarterback back there. I mean, how many more chances do we have to give him? He's had plenty of soft matches. You want to talk about soft matchups? Look at what the Chiefs have faced. They couldn't win at home. They couldn't cover the spread at home against the Giants. They barely eked that game out, and it was thanks to some mistakes by the Giants. I don't know. Like, I get it. Jordan Love's a backup. We haven't seen him play much, but that offense around him is pretty solid, and I'm more than confident that he and the running attack are going to get this game taken care of.
All right, guys, let's move to the DFS side of the Sunday slate here. So which player are you chasing for a big game that could possibly break the slate, Pierce?
I'm going to stay right there with Jordan Love at 4,400 on Tuesday. Everyone on the price check loved Aaron Rodgers. He was the number one play in the number one spot. It was a no-brainer. We've played Taylor Heineke in this spot. We've played Daniel Jones in this spot. You can't play Jordan Love at 4,400 with better receivers, with a good rush attack that's going to diversify the options behind him. You don't need 30 points from this guy, right? He's half the price of Rodgers. You just need half the output. It's really not that hard. I mean, he can just basically throw the ball to Adams the entire game, and he's going to be a return of value.
All right, Jeff, what do you think?
Can Jordan Love complete a forward pass? That'll be an interesting question this Sunday. I'm going to a guy I loved last week, and I'm going back to Elijah Mitchell. I do not know why the DFS community is not getting around this dude. I mean, averaging 6.7 yards per carry over his last two games. He's playing 66% of the snaps, which is a really big share in a Kyle Shanahan offense. He's taking on the Cardinals, banged up, averaging 4.9 yards per carry against. Elijah Mitchell's 5,800, guys. Like, let's get on this train. He's probably not even going to be that highly owned. He's under 6K. So I really like him again for a big game.
All right, let's move on to which DFS play you're absolutely fading this week. Jeff, who stands out to you as just a no-go?
So I'm going to stick with the running back position here. I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs. Again, a player getting a ton of love. I know the usage is there, and he's kind of taken over as the lead role. But, like, look, if you look across the board, every single Raiders player is going to be popular this week. Not all of them can go for 20 fantasy points. The Raiders are not good at running the football. Like, I know they're playing the Giants, but this has been a bit of a tumultuous week. The Raiders are not a good rushing offense. And ultimately, I think they just sort of fade back to trusting the pass here and getting Derek Carr, probably to pull them out of a bit of a hole. The Giants are getting a little bit healthier too, so they can even take the lead here. I think if I'm investing in anyone here, it's probably Carr and Darren Waller. Again, you can't play every Raider, and Jacobs is projecting as potentially the most popular of the bunch. So I'd fade Josh Jacobs here. Again, I think the spot calls for more Darren Waller.
All right, Pierce, what do you think? Which DFS player are you absolutely fading this week?
I'm going to fade another running back as well. Alvin Kamara is in a great spot against Atlanta. A lot of people are going to want to play him this week, but I just have my doubts whether he can coexist with Mark Ingram in that backfield. I know it's worked in the past, but that was a different team. That was a Drew Brees team. That was a team that liked to pass. That was much more efficient. You could theoretically come up with the idea that, well, maybe Kamara is going to be, in the slot and line up as receiver more, and maybe that's how he's going to get his points. But this team doesn't pass. Third fewest pass attempts this season. And I imagine that's going to go even lower now with Winston out and with Simeon and Hill out there. They're one of the slowest paced teams. I think Ingram is going to get plenty of carries. He was on the team for what, 2 days last week, and he got 25% of the carries. That's going to increase this week, especially if Atlanta's playing with the lead. Sean Payton's going to try to give the ball to Ingram more, save Kamara for the more important games down the road. I worry about Kamara moving ahead.
I mean, I'd be more, and Ingram's a worry, but what about Taysom Hill? I mean, he could take over at halftime too. We know Kamara was brutal with Taysom Hill at quarterback last year. So I think it's a good fade. It's just, I'd be more worried about Taysom Hill.
A lot of question marks. All right, Pierce and Jeff will be back for some more NFL talk, but let's check in with our Cowboys insider, Nick Eatman, and see if Dak and CeeDee Lamb are a stack to consider against the Broncos on Sunday.
Broncos, they've been kind of mediocre, obviously, at this point in the year, and they are next on that schedule again in Dallas. Could there be any justification to Rush's performance, giving the coaching staff any motivation or at least just comfort in playing him again to really make sure Dak is back to 100% before he returns? Because again, it's not like this is any sort of a, even a must-win feel, let alone a true must-win game. We're in week 9, it's a long way to go. Last year's kind of a cautionary tale in some ways. Does any of that come into play?
I think, though, it's early to be talking about playoff picture and all that. But like we said before, I think there's 5 teams in the NFC that are all right there. And so you could say they have a comfortable lead in their division, but maybe the stakes are a little bit higher now. And so I do think every game matters. At NFC, AFC, I think they matter. You got to go out. You got to perform. You got to win. And so, and Dak wants to play. He wants to play. And so they're going to do everything they can to get him ready to go. Sure. It's a great fallback plan, a better one than you thought 3 days ago because of what Cooper was able to do. But if he's ready to go, Dak Prescott is the guy. He's the leader of this team. And you can't, overlook the fact, too, that the Cowboys played it perfectly because the Vikings really thought Dak was going to play. And the players said that after the game, that they thought we prepared all week for him. Start preparing for Cooper Rush. No one's ever prepared for him. Teams start preparing for him. You might see a little bit of a different, game. And so I don't think you want to get greedy with it, whatever. He did a nice job, but he's the backup. And if Dak's ready to go, Dak will be out.
If there's one thing we know the last couple weeks, Nick, is a guy you really enjoy watching and who doesn't. CeeDee Lamb, doesn't matter who's under center. This guy's locked in. Back-to-back 100-yard games, 15 catches, 19 targets, a pair of scores his last 2 road games. After what was a relatively quiet stretch at home, it's good for him, obviously, that his usage is back to what it was in the very beginning of the year when he was, red hot, used a ton the first couple games. But why this change? Why has it been kind of up and down, you think?
Well, I think I don't really think it's up and down. I think it's the fact of this is a very unselfish team. The quarterback is not doesn't have an agenda to try to get one guy the football. His agenda is try to move the ball and score touchdowns. And if it's Amari Cooper, it's Cooper. If it's CD, it's CD. Cedric Wilson, Dalton Schultz. So I think that's the nature of how things go. Is that he has a big game. I mean, New England was not going to let Amari Cooper have a big game, and he didn't. But problem is his CD did. And so then now you try to switch it, and you're like, all right, well, maybe let's focus on CD. Then Amari has a big game. So I don't think, it drives fantasy owners crazy. I understand that. But it's just not something that the Cowboys are worried about. They know every game's going to be a little bit different. And some games CD's going to have his moment. Sometimes he's not. But I think he's really coming into his own. I thought he played a really great game against Minnesota. I thought one of his best plays was the one, it wasn't thrown by Cooper Rush, it was thrown by receiver Cedric Wilson, where the play kind of broke down. It was supposed to be a double reverse pass. And Cedric kept the play going, but really CD did a nice job of just figuring out a way to stay open and find the zone. He did that in the game-winning touchdown against New England as well. So he's getting a good feel for things. He's really becoming and developing, doing a great route runner. You throw that on top of his just ball skills and speed and all that, he could be one of the best in the league.
All right, from the gridiron to the hardwood, from one Nick to two others. Say hello to our NBA panel, DraftKings contributor Nick Fryer and RotoWire's Nick Whalen. They're here for NBA price checks, so need the best plays in each price range for the NBA's 9-game slate this evening. So let's start with the top of the price range. Who is your favorite guard play over $7,000, Nick Fryer?
So last night, I didn't want to go with any of the too high price guys just because, there were a couple of like 8K players that I thought we could, bunch in together with some cheaper options, but I'm going to go all the way towards the top. We got a few guys over 10K tonight, a few high 9K guys as well. I'm going to go with James Harden going up against the Pistons. That's the one team that's coming off a back-to-back tonight. And the Pistons are one of the worst teams defensively against point guards this season. They're one of the top 10 points per game allowed this season against point guards. And Harden just faced them a couple games ago, went off for 18 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists. Of course, always a triple-double threat, very reliable double-double option. And we look at his assist totals too. He's never had fewer than 7 this season. So I'm going to go with Harden as my top guy tonight.
All right, Nick Whalen, who's your favorite guard play over 7K?
Yeah, I don't mind paying up for Harden. I don't really mind even paying a really steep price for Steph Curry going up against that horrific Pelicans team tonight. But I think you have enough options under the 5-figure range that you can kind of pick and choose. You don't necessarily have to blow a ton of your budget there. DeJounte Murray at 9,100 to me is pretty appealing. He gets a good matchup against an Orlando team that has been like suspiciously fun to watch so far. Still not a very good team, not a very good defense. I think this is a backcourt in Suggs and Cole Anthony that he could really exploit defensively. He has at least 1 steal in every game. Obviously, one of the best guard rebounders in the league. The assists have been there pretty much every night. He's scoring over 18 points per game. Hasn't quite taken like the massive leap in scoring that maybe we'd hoped he has, but without DeMar DeRozan in San Antonio, he has certainly emerged as the guy there. The one concern, of course, Orlando near the bottom of the league in pace, but San Antonio uncharacteristically in the top 3 right now in pace, so it should be a pace up game for the Magic. I think there's a pretty strong case to be rostering DeJounte tonight.
All right, Nick Whalen, how about your best forward play over 7K?
I'm going to go Harrison Barnes. 7,600. I did not think that this is where we would be a couple weeks into the season where Harrison Barnes is making a run at the MVP. But neither of these teams, he's going up against Charlotte tonight. Neither of these teams are good on the defensive end. Both these teams play very fast, should be a fantasy friendly game from top to bottom. But the Kings have just very, very few options on the wing. And that's part of what's led to this great start for Harrison Barnes is like if De'Aaron Fox doesn't have it, and it's kind of been every other game for him so far, there's not a lot of other options on this team. You're bringing Buddy Hield off the bench. Marvin Bagley's out of the rotation completely. Mo Harkless, not exactly an offensive threat. So they've turned to a guy in Harrison Barnes who's essentially been a role player for a lot of his career. And he's kind of taken on like a borderline star role so far. So he hasn't dipped below 33 DraftKings points in any game this season. He has 4 games of at least 40 DraftKings points. He even has 50 DraftKings points upside. I think this is a great matchup for him to exploit tonight.
All right, Nick F., where are you going? Forward play over 7K.
So I want to cheat a little bit here. I'm going to go a little bit under 7K because, we're going to go a little really cheap a little bit later on. Karis LeVert at 6.8K going up against the Blazers tonight. Of course, you can slide him over as shooting guard as well. And we've seen his production increase game to game since his return. And I know, Malcolm Brogdon coming back last game, you might think, oh, well, how's he going to do? Of course, Sabonis has been struggling a little bit. And last game was LeVert's best fantasy performance we've seen this season. And he also brings it on the defensive end too. So, and this is a guy too, similar to James Harden, where he's kind of blowout proof because he's going to go and provide assists. LeVert may not go and score as much on a given night, but then you're going to see his assist numbers rise. It's kind of like a sliding scale. And sure, he can go off, but either way, he's going to produce. He's just going to, sometimes you might do it in a different way, which is also why I like his over on his points assist total tonight on DraftKings Sportsbook, which is at 24.5 right now.
All right, Nick F., sticking with you. Who is your favorite center over 7K?
Again, I just want to go a little bit under 7K, and this guy's at 6.6. There's Evan Mobley, right? So who looks great at 7.2K going up against the Raptors. But I want to go with Jarrett Allen because he's got the hot hand right now. He's coming off back-to-back 55 DK fantasy point performances. Look, on a given night, I'm going to go with Evan Mobley over Jarrett Allen probably 7 times out of 10. This is one of those 3 times where I got to go with Jarrett Allen right now. We know he can grab boards. We know he can fill it up on the offensive end too. And when you look at Portland and Charlotte done, I know we talked about Charlotte before, how like they, but either way, I think with Portland and Charlotte, they've performed similarly against centers in terms of points per game and rebounds per game as the Raptors have this season. So I'm going to stick with Jarrett Allen to stay hot tonight.
All right, Nick W., which center over 7K are you going with tonight?
Well, first of all, I love the Jared Allen call. I think a lot of it is the matchup against Toronto that just doesn't really have a true center, hasn't really settled on a guy that they like. They're still starting Achua, but his minutes have been all over the place. He's obviously undersized, especially compared to a guy like Jared Allen. Ken Burch has kind of been in there every now and then, Chris Boucher. So I think this is actually a really good spot to roll with either of those guys in the Cleveland front court. But I kind of like Sabonis at 9,300 tonight against Portland. Like Nick F said, he's been down these last couple of games. I think this is a good bounce back spot for Sabonis. I like Jonas Valanciunas at 8,700 against Golden State. He's been a double-double machine so far this season. He's playing like 8 more minutes per game than he did last season. So that's been huge. But Karl Anthony Towns, I think as well at 10,700 makes a lot of sense. He just put up 46 DraftKings points on the Clippers 2 nights ago. The Clippers are a terrible rebounding team. They're bottom 5 in the league in rebounding percentage. They're the, I believe, second worst defensive rebounding team in the league. The only problem is the only worst rebounding team than the Clippers is the Timberwolves. So kind of 2 competing forces in that one. But even at that elevated price tag, I think Towns has a really, really high floor in these contests.
All right, Nick W. Now we need some value. So what's your best guard play under 5K?
I really like the initials thing. I feel like this is like very elementary school, but it's working well so far. I'll throw 2 names out there. Joe Harris at 4,400. He finally broke out on Wednesday against Atlanta. I believe he had 6 threes in that game, had been pretty quiet through the first 2 weeks of the season. And then a guy that I think will be a fairly popular pivot in this low cost range tonight is Malik Beasley, also priced at 4,400. No D'Angelo Russell for the Timberwolves. I think we pretty much automatically see more Malik Beasley in this game. He's really only had like 2 decent games this year, kind of adjusting to coming off the bench, but he's a little overqualified for that role. And I think not having Russell tonight maybe unlocks more of the Malik Beasley that we saw when he was healthy last season.
All right, Nick F., who are you going with?
I'm going to go with Devin Vassell tonight at 3.9K. I know we're talking a little bit about the Spurs Magic game earlier with DeJounte Murray. I know with Vassell last time out, he got quite a minutes bump with Jakob Poeltl out, and we saw him actually play, 30 minutes last game, 27 before that, and we've seen him produce as a result. He's coming off back-to-back strong performances like Allen, of course not as well as Allen, but when you look at Dallas too, who Vassell saw last time out, they performed similarly to Orlando versus shooting guards and small forwards tonight. So at 3.9K, I'm going to take a flyer Vassell is my cheapest guy tonight at guard.
All right, Nick F., let's finish up with your best forward or center under 5K. So some more savings here.
So I'm going to bring it all the way back to the Nets-Pistons game. I'm going to stay on the Nets side of it again with the Pistons coming off a back-to-back. I'm going to go with LaMarcus Aldridge at 4.7K. What we saw the other night with what the Pistons did up against Joel Embiid. Of course, he had a rough night. But when I see, as much as I saw that, the Pistons are among one of the worst teams in points per game against bigs. And we're talking power forwards and centers. And seeing them go and expend all that energy on the night before up against one of the best center in the league, that makes me think, okay, they're going to have a little bit of a tougher time going up against Aldridge tonight. And they're going to have their focus elsewhere too, because you got a couple other guys who are quite a bit better than LaMarcus Aldridge, much greater offensive threats. So he's going to be my value play at the big tonight.
All right, Nick W., who are you rolling with?
I actually like quite a few guys in this range tonight. It'll be tough to make these decisions, when I officially lock in the lineups. But on the other side of that Brooklyn-Detroit game, I kind of like Isaiah Stewart at 4,700. It's been a bit of a rough start for him. Hasn't quite lived up to his ADP if you're talking season-long leagues. But I feel like this price is just too low at 4,700. I think he still has a lot of upside in this game against a Nets team that, like we mentioned with the Raptors, hasn't really settled on a center and doesn't really have any great options there. So I like Stewart. I like Bobby Portis at 4,700. Still no Brook Lopez for Milwaukee tonight. Nick Batum at 4,600 for the Clippers going up against Minnesota. He has 34 DraftKings points in each of his last 2 games. And then, like Nick F. mentioned, Devin Vassell, 3,900 seems like a really good deal. He's eligible at guard and forward. Played a season-high 31 minutes on Wednesday against Dallas. Not exactly a guy who you'd think would be like a natural replacement with Jakob Poeltl out, but, the way that the rotation shuffles, Thaddeus Young starts playing more minutes at center. Devin Vassell kind of slides into more minutes at the forward spot. 31 DraftKings points in that game. I thought he was vastly more effective than Doug McDermott, who returned from injury. So I do think Vassell at 3,900, pretty high floor for a player at that price point.
All right, good stuff, guys. Thank you to our panel of Nicks, Nick F., Nick W. Appreciate it. Let's get back to football, though. Heading into the halfway mark, let's check in with Hall of Famer Jerome Bettis and get a breakdown of the NFL season so far with the Bus.
Joining us now is Hall of Fame running back and Super Bowl champion with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the boss, Jerome Bettis. It's kind of depressing here to think that once this week's games are complete, we're going to be halfway through the NFL's first 17-game regular season. But because you're here, we can stop being sad, we can start being awesome, and get your take on some of the key players and storylines from the first half and look ahead to the stretch run. Got to start with Derrick Henry. He was leading the NFL in the rushing department by almost 400 yards. However, he's now out indefinitely after foot surgery. So who do you like to take advantage of his absence and grab that NFL rushing crown?
You know, that's a tough one because he was, so far, Henry was so far out ahead of everybody. Now it brings a couple guys into focus. Jonathan Taylor from the Indianapolis Colts, and then also Nick Chubb with the Cleveland Browns. I think these two guys are probably going to be 1-2 fighting it out. But the way I see it is I'm looking at these teams and looking at which team is really built to have a stretch run and to have that running back continue on. And I think that team is going to be Cleveland Browns, and I think Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb is going to be the leader at the end of the season just because of their commitment to running the football. I think Indianapolis Colts, they have a wonderful running game, and Taylor is one of the best in the NFL. But I don't believe they're going to have that same commitment that the Cleveland Browns have throughout the second half of the season. So I'm going with Nick Chubb to lead the league in rushing.
Yeah, Taylor's next in the rushing department. They're behind Henry. And then there's Chubb, and Chubb has played 2 less games as well. Chubb's got 584 yards, Taylor 649. That's pretty impressive. As we mentioned, though, it's also a 17-game regular season. I think we could see a lot of records here broken this year. So a lot can still happen. But who are your favorites in each conference as of right now after 8 weeks?
Well, in terms of the conferences, obviously the NFC is, when you look at the conference from top to bottom, they are pretty strong. Obviously, you like Green Bay, but now you see, hey, no Aaron Rodgers. That's going to be an issue. You look at the Dallas Cowboys, you say, wow, these guys, Cooper Rush steps in, and they still win a tough game in Minnesota. They're impressive. And then the Rams, they get Von Miller, changes the dynamics of that defense. And they already were a great defense, so now they get even better. So, if you have to pick one on the NFC side, I would, and you got to still, remember the champs. I mean, we're talking about everybody. We're not even talking about Tampa. So
right.
I just think right now, the way it's setting up, I think the Rams are putting themselves in position to be the front runner right now in the NFC. In the AFC, it's a little different, with Kansas City coming back to earth, with Tennessee losing Derrick Henry. Those two teams are diminished substantially. That brings the Buffalo Bills into focus as the number one team in the NFC to come out. But I tell you this, whoever wins the AFC North, I think, is going to be in contention as well. It's going to be a tough division. It's going to play out all the way down to the finish line. So I expect whoever wins the AFC North to be in it, but the clear favorites right now, Buffalo.
Yeah, well, speaking of the AFC North, there you got your old team, the Pittsburgh Sailors. They're right back in the thick of things in that division too. They have kept first-round running back Najee Harris very, very busy this season. Another Bama dude. What have you seen from him so far, and what are your expectations for the rest of the season? He was just named the NFL's Offensive Rookie of the Month for October.
And I see a lot of growth in him from, his first week until now. He's doing so many things better. His vision is much better. The way he's attacking defenses, impressive. So I just see him as developing each and every week. And people are saying, hey, he's getting the ball too many times. It's too much. You got to remember, the guy is only 22, 23 years old. He can take it. This is the time you get him the ball, and he's learning with every carry, with every catch. He's learning the NFL game. So I think the sky's the limit for this young man, and I expect to see him doing big things for the rest of this year.
Our NFL panel is back, and this time we are joined by DraftKings contributors Pierce Dietrich, Jeff Ulrich, and RotoWire's AJ Scholes. Guys, NFL high or low? Okay, so are these prices, lines, and odds too high, too low, or maybe they're just right? So let's start with the biggest spread this weekend. Bills, 14.5-point favorites over the Jags. Too high or too low, AJ?
I mean, look, I absolutely expect Buffalo to come out and win this one and likely in convincing fashion here, but more than 2 TDs, like that's just too high to me. The Jags aren't, without talent. They've got Lawrence. If Robinson plays, like they've got some players. It's just too big of a spread at 14.5. If it was like less than the 2 touchdowns, right? Even 13.5, I'd feel a little bit better about. But the Jags aren't a complete walkover club in my opinion here.
Pierce, how do you feel about this spread?
It's too low. A number is never too high when it's the Jags. And yeah, they are a complete walkover team in my book. We've seen the Bills do this before. Houston shut out by the Bills. Miami shut out by the Bills. Maybe the Jaguars are in the same company as those teams. Maybe they're not even as good as those 2 teams. The Bills defense should have no problem shutting down this Jaguars offense that has not looked very good this year. They haven't even looked very good in garbage time. They've played well against some bad opponents. And then on the other side, Buffalo's offense has been pretty solid. They have no problem scoring against bad teams. They have no problem scoring against good teams. I know it's a big number, but we've seen several teams this season already cover big numbers against bad teams.
All right, Jeff, 14.5 points. Do you feel like the Jags are a walkover team here? You can go with this number?
I mean, as much as I hate ties in general and wearing them, I am going to side with the guy wearing one here and break the tie. I think this number is not big enough. I mean, we have precedent here, right? I mean, the Bills opened as 14-point favorites against Miami last week. They beat them by 16, and that line did get up to around 16 by game time. So, all things considered, you look at the Bills against Miami. Miami's defense was getting a little bit healthy there to put up a little bit of a fight, but the Jags aren't going to do that. I mean, the Jags play at one of the fastest paces in the league, and they have no interest in making games slower or their defense trying to step up. This is a team too that's 2-5 against the spread. Buffalo's 4-2-1 against the spread. I mean, these teams are just complete opposite in terms of what they do and how they perform on the field. Buffalo, to me, is the most complete team in the NFL, or one of the top 3 complete teams. They can get here by so many ways too, Jess. That's the other thing. Josh Allen can chuck the ball around. Their defense could come up with a couple late picks. I just don't trust the Jags offense necessarily. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence is running it a little bit. Maybe they could connect with a big bomb, but he has not been good on downfield passes. He's still not throwing it downfield that much. I think this spread will probably get up a little bit by game time, but if it stays under 17, I'll take the Bills to cover.
All right, guys, Cardinals are now 2-point dogs as Murray's status is up in the air. Is that spread right, given that Cliff Kingsbury has said that he's still comfortable with Murray playing on Sunday, even if he doesn't practice during the week, Pierce?
I don't know what to say, too high or too low, because we don't know if he's playing or not. It's just pure speculation at this point. If he plays, then I think it's too low, I guess, is the way I would say is they should be favored if he's going to play. If he's halfway healthy, I still think they probably are favored, but we don't know. We got to see what Friday looks like. Follow the DK Live app at DK Live on Twitter. We'll give you updates on whether he practices on Friday. If he practices on Friday, then I think the Cardinals are going to win this game, and I feel comfortable in saying that. If he does not play Friday, then yeah, go the other direction.
All right, Jeff, how do we feel about this one?
No, don't listen to Pierce. He had one good take. No, I think the 49ers, even at -2, I think the line should be up to -3. You've got a banged up Kyler Murray. You've got a banged up team that's DeAndre Hopkins may not play. They really didn't look that good. And look, I think the Packers exposed the Cardinals last week. I think this team is reeling a bit from that. They're not 100% healthy. And now they've got one of the best rushing offenses in the league to come and deal with. You don't think Kyle Shanahan watched that game last week, is looking at the news at Kyler Murray and says, I'm going to run Elijah Mitchell down their throats here and absolutely expose the Arizona Cardinals? That's exactly what's going to happen here. Pierce can roll his eyes at me all he wants. The San Francisco team is stiffening up a bit too. Their defense has been a lot better. They're not allowing big plays in the secondary right now. I think San Francisco should be a field goal here. And as long as they stay under 3 points, I'm taking them to cover.
AJ, what's your take on this one?
I'm with Pierce here. I think it all depends on Murray. I will say, there's some question marks on Arizona outside of Murray: Chase Edmonds, DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green, some big names possibly missing out. So I do think that's an important factor here to kind of figure out. But ultimately, if Murray plays, I do think they should be favored. I'm absolutely with Pierce.
All right, relatively low game totals this week. So the second highest right now is Minnesota at Baltimore with 50 points. Do you feel like that total's too high for a Vikings team that averages 45.7 in their games, and Ravens just barely average over the total at 50.1, Jeff?
No, I don't think this one is too high. I think when it's sitting around 50, you're still going to want to take the over here. These are two defenses. They just seem a little bit overrated. I mean, they give away big plays in the secondary, kind of in the run game too. Like, you can run on Baltimore. I wouldn't be shocked to see Dalvin Cook break off a big run here or two as well. Both of them kind of trending towards the over here. Well, Baltimore definitely trending towards playing in more shootout games. These teams tend to underperform when they're going up against bad defenses or just bad teams in general. They sort of play down to their opponents, but when they're going up against the lead offenses, like we've seen, Minnesota got in a shootout with Arizona, they almost won. Baltimore getting in a shootout with the Colts. I think these two teams are kind of made for each other in a way, and I think you're going to see a lot of points in this game. A lot of fantasy potential. I think 50 points. I'm almost surprised that this one hasn't moved yet. I think by game time, you might see this one creep up towards 51.
AJ, you think 50 is too low?
No, I actually think it's just a tad too high. You have to consider, Minnesota's defense has allowed the fifth fewest total points in the league right now at 150. That's just 21.4 per game. The Ravens offense, for their part, is averaging 26 points per game. And you add in the fact that both these teams are in the top half in terms of run play percentage. It's ground and pound on both these teams relative to the rest of the league. And I would expect maybe a bit of a slower game than what we've seen in the past.
All right, Pierce, where are you going on this 50-point total?
I'm on the same page with Jeff for once here. These defenses are overrated. Mike Zimmer's defenses are supposed to be better than this. I know that they're limiting points, but in terms of rush defense, they're towards the bottom in the league, and that's going to be a problem against the Ravens team that likes to run the ball. And, this is, although the Vikings have been pretty good against the pass, this is kind of a different dynamic passing attack that I think can move the ball. And I know the Ravens offense has kind of been pretty mercurial. There's times that they've let us down, and there's other times where they've exploded. I think we're going to see one of those 30-point outputs from the Ravens. And then also, just as Mike Zimmer's defenses have been slightly overrated, the Ravens defense is overrated as well. They're average to below average. We saw that last week against the Bengals. We saw that in the first half against the Colts. I think both these defenses are weak. The offenses can let us down, but I think this time they're going to put the points on the board.
All right, on the other side, Pats, Panthers, lowest total on Sunday at 41. Too high or too low, AJ?
Honestly, this one feels just about right to me to be the lowest total on the board. Sam Darnold is dealing with some question marks there. If he can't play, then this Panthers team is going to be even more reliant on the run. Carolina is fourth in the league in time of possession, while also averaging just 20 points per game, just a little bit over that. So there's not a lot of speed coming out of that team. And again, if Darnold's out, it's even more of a problem for them.
Pierce, you feeling like that 41 number might be just right?
No, I love taking the over on these low total games. A couple weeks ago, the Steelers game went well over when they were the lowest total. Last week, the Bears and Niners was the lowest on the board, and that one cruised over pretty easily. I think this Panthers team is definitely overrated. They face the second easiest schedule in football. They've improved. They're much more healthy. But I also believe a lot in this Patriots offense. I think the Patriots offense is definitely going to be able to move the ball easily against this Panthers defense. And then on the other side, the Panthers defense is still, or the Patriots defense is still gelling. And I think the Panthers will be able to, even if they have a backup quarterback in, put some points on the board and get over this number.
Jeff, you think they can go over 41 points?
Yeah, I'll take the Pierce Dietrich cop-out answer and go and just say this one's too low, and I'll just take the automatic over here. But I mean, look, we do need to, Pierce is right, we do need to give the Patriots offense some credit here. I mean, it's a team that scored 25 or more points in their last 4 games. I mean, this is an offense that's kind of just going underrated because they don't have any big names. They're just doing it every week with different players and in different ways. And Carolina has not played anyone. I mean, they really haven't. They just allowed 25 points to the Giants without Galladay and Saquon Barkley, 34 points to the Vikings. this team has been getting by on a weak schedule. And yeah, they've been winning some games. Like AJ said, it's a good point. They definitely are trying to slow the pace down, but I don't think they're going to be able to do that against the Patriots. And look, here's the hot take of the week. Sam Darnold, if he's out, that might actually be a boon to their offense. Christian McCaffrey also should give them a little boost. I definitely think this total is just a little bit too low for you to take the under. So I'm leaning over here for sure.
All right, good stuff, guys. That's going to do it for NFL. We have one more block to go here on the Sweat. We're going to talk that hockey next. Pair of RotoWire guys, AJ Scholes and Paul Bruno. Fellas, it is time for NHL opening face-off. So need your favorite options for tonight's 5-game NHL slate. So we've been saying it all season. When Connor McDavid is on the slate, you have to find a way to get him in your DFS lineup. So is that true again tonight against the Rangers, AJ?
No, I've actually been saying the opposite all season long, and that's to save a little bit of money and go with Leon Draisaitl instead. He's leading the league in points. He's one behind Alex Ovechkin in goals with 9, and he's $800 cheaper than McDavid. There's nothing wrong at this point with leaning into McDavid. It's going to work out okay, but I just don't think it's worth paying up that little bit more when you can get the same or better production out of Leon Draisaitl right now.
All right, Paul, I know you're going with McDavid here.
Well, I certainly have confidence it will be productive at home where the Oilers have the last change, no matter who the opponent is. But that does mean you spend $800 more on him than anybody else, including his running mate, Leon Draisaitl. I'll tell you what, Jesse, I would build out my lineup, leaving a center spot blank. And if you find players at other positions that you're really happy with and still can afford to put them in there, then do it. Otherwise, I see other pivots with very good matchups tonight that I could make a case for. One, for instance, is Anze Kopitar. He has had a pair of 2-point games in the past week, has 13 points in 10 games overall, and he's the best center on the ice in the matchup against the Devils tonight. He costs $7,700. Alternatively, you'll never see a $5,400 price tag beside Mark Scheifele again, I don't think. He's coming off a 5-game absence due to the COVID protocol, and he's been a point-per-game player throughout his career, so tonight, he gets a home ice advantage against a messed-up Chicago club. I see him playing a lot of high-leverage minutes and getting the top line on the power play as well. That's too good for me to pass up.
All right, sticking to the DFS side, who is another player that you want to pay up for and get in your lineup here, Paul?
Don't be shy about taking Winnipeg backup goalie Eric Comrie. I mean, he's the backup goalie. He's the most expensive goalie on the slate. No matter whether he plays or Hellebuck shows up, they got a great matchup tonight. He's been solid, Comrie has, since stepping in for Hellebuck, in fact, who is ill and dealing with the birth of his first child. So I don't know where his head is at these days and whether he's healthy enough to go. But Comrie, he's picked up 2 wins this week and looked good in doing that, turning aside 54 of 59 shots that he's faced. And he won't have a problem getting the W against the visitors from Chicago, as I pointed out.
All right, AJ, who are you paying up for?
I'm going to look at the blue line here and pay up to get Adam Fox in my lineup tonight at $6,800. It's still $1,000 cheaper than Roman Josi, but both those guys are tied with Kevin Shattenkirk for the defenseman lead in scoring with 11 points. Edmonton, for their part, continues to lead the league in shots allowed per game. So I expect it to be a high volume night for Fox and him to get on the score sheet here as well.
All right, where's the value on tonight's DFS slate, AJ? Got to find some value if we're going to be paying up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this counts as value or not, but I'm going to roll with it because he's under 6K, and that's Ryan Nugent Hopkins here. Again, he is basically falling into points at this point. He hasn't scored yet this season, but he's still 5th in the league in overall points with 13 assists. He's on the top power play with both of Edmonton's big guns, and that's evident by the fact that 8 of his 13 assists have been scored on the man advantage. At 5-on-5, he's playing on Draisaitl's wing. This guy just can't help but pick up assists at this point.
All right, Paul, what do you think? Where is the value tonight?
Well, if you decide to go with one of the Edmonton top centers, you're going to need to go bargain hunting, Jesse. So I like Scheifele. I think Blake Wheeler's price is very low at only $4,300. Admittedly, he's gotten off to a sluggish start too, with only 2 points in 4 games played. But I like this as a game as a good spot for him to start rolling at more usual pace. On the blue line, I look at the Coyotes-Ducks game. That's where not a lot of people will look, quite frankly. And I find value in the Ducks having an advantage back on the blue line. So I'll be considering Jamie Drysdale, their rookie, who's getting plenty of reps with the top power play. He faces a Coyotes club that's currently employing a lot of players who should be in the American Hockey League, including both starting goalies that they choose from tonight. Arizona fans who don't like that reference can reach out to me on Twitter at Statsman22. I'll welcome the dialogue.
Okay. Home favorites in each game on the slate tonight, guys. Any chance a road team gets a win tonight, Paul?
The only one that stands out to me, Jesse, is the Nashville Predators to have the best chance to win on the road in Vancouver tonight. The Canucks are in the 5th game of a homestand that isn't going very well for them. They've only one win and been limited to only 7 goals scored in their last 4 games. That doesn't bode well as they face a Predators team that has had a 4-game win streak snapped in Edmonton a couple of days ago. And Nashville is back to playing their best defensive game in this stretch and have been scoring more than usual. Take them to win tonight as the slight underdog here. I see another high-scoring game in Winnipeg as their forward group is intact finally and gets the favorable matchup against the Hawks that I've been hammering on in today's show. Only one thing the Hawks can do is score 2, though. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them combine to go over that prop 2 of 6 goals in that game.
AJ, what do you think?
I actually think the Rangers might be a solid play tonight in terms of road win. You'll get plus 125 value here. Igor Shesterkin has been playing really well to start the season. His goals against average stands at 1.85. Look, he's not going to shut down the Oilers offense entirely, but he can keep it close. And the Rangers actually have a pretty deep team, even when you consider guys like Lafreniere and Kakko have had relatively slow starts to the year. But these are top 2 picks. And if one or both of those guys can turn it up a notch tonight, the Rangers can compete in terms of depth with Edmonton here.
All right, favorite prop bet tonight, AJ?
I'm actually going to look at game props tonight and go with the to win with a shutout option. You can get the Ducks here at plus 750 to blank the Coyotes. Arizona has yet to win a game. They're averaging a league worst 1.3 goals per game. I think it's absolutely worth taking a shot at this value. Plus 750 is a great return here for a shutout that could seriously happen.
All right, Paul, favorite prop bet for tonight?
Well, I gave you a free one with the last question. So
yeah.
In addition to Winnipeg and Chicago, I'm going to say the Vancouver game is going to be a low-scoring affair. And, we've tended to go on the overside a lot in these segments. I'm going to go on the underside, even go to the alternate goal line of less than 4.5 goals against, for a plus 220 payoff. I'm not really sure why we see whole numbers here, because if you're going to bet on under 4, you got to go all the way down to 3. So I'm sticking with a half and saying, let's see if I can get that plus 220.
All right, good stuff, guys. Thank you for wrapping up the show with me. Madden is starting at noon with Ravens Bears. Make sure you tune in for that. And then, of course, the slate will be on at 5 p.m. with Kaufman, Bukes, and LaMarca. So tune in for that. This show will be back Monday at 11 a.m. Of course, we have all our Sunday shows. So enjoy the weekend.